not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
The Last of Us is one of the most important games of the past decade, and it certainly is Sony's most important game in recent times. It helped the PlayStation 3 pass the Xbox 360 in terms of sales, and it gave all PlayStation exclusive games an identity, a common artistic direction. God of War 2018, Days Gone, Horizon Zero Dawn all feel like they belong to the same brand, and that's because they were all greatly influenced by The Last of Us. But why? Why did an end-of-generation third-person survival horror shooter have such an impact? Well, firstly, its gameplay was rock solid, its loot system so impeccable that basically every game now has one. But I think, and this isn't exactly a hot take, that The Last of Us's greatest strength is its story. The story of The Last of Us is insanely simple when you get down to it. A man has to accompany a teenager across a post-apocalyptic America. For said teenager is humanity's only hope. It's a simple pitch, and in terms of story structure, it really isn't that bold or great. The game tells a small arc for each season of the year-long journey, and these arcs feel quite disconnected from one another. Characters are introduced in one arc, and they disappear by the next one, leaving behind nothing but memories. Well, this isn't exactly true. Their most important contribution to The Last of Us' story is the impact they have on our two protagonists, Joel and Ellie. The Last of Us is a character-driven story, in the sense that the real goal of the game isn't to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies. The player is interested in this game because he wants to witness the character development of Ellie and, mostly, Joel. In reality, this game isn't about saving all of humanity. It's about restoring one man's humanity, Joel's humanity. But of course, a character-driven story needs to have good characters. Thankfully, The Last of Us has some of the best character writing in history. And this is because these characters don't feel like fiction. They feel real. And they feel real because they never act in a way that's illogical when you take into consideration what they've been through. Ellie came up in military school, alone. As she puts it in the scene I showed you at the start, she was abandoned by others, whether it be because of others' choices to abandon her, or their deaths. Joel, meanwhile, used to be a father whose daughter died in his arms. He sees himself, because of this, as untrustworthy, a failed man, and most importantly, a failed father. To put it simply, both of these characters are traumatized. Trauma that runs throughout the story. Most of the time it's underlying. For most of the game you can feel it, but you can never touch it, it's never explicit. However, this scene sees the trauma of both characters boil over, hidden no more. This scene is the one that made me realize how good The Last of Us was when I first played it. By simply showing this scene to someone, they understand both of Joel and Ellie's characters easily. Every word in this scene is masterfully chosen by the writers over at Naughty Dog. Every word has its importance, every word adds to Joel and Ellie's characters, every word reveals a bit more about their complexities. It's ever so subtle, it's amazing. This scene is one of my favourite gaming memories ever. This scene is The Last of Us encapsulated into 2 minutes. The essence of both characters boiled down to one dialogue. This scene is perfect characterization.
Ellie? You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
This scene squeezes every single little bit of emotion out of Joel. Ellie's trauma is apparent in this scene, but this is Joel's scene. It's his turning point in the story, and it's his turning point in the way he approaches Ellie. The scene I showed you at the start is only half of the interaction that Ellie and Joel share in this dialogue. It's when Joel's trauma really boils over because Ellie touched his weak point. And I should really show you the first half of the dialogue, the first half of the scene, because it's less powerful than the second half, but it's as important.
Do you even realize what your life means? Huh? Running off like that, putting yourself at risk? It's pretty goddamn stupid.
Well, I guess we're both disappointed with each other then.
What do you want from me?
Admit that you wanted to get rid of me the whole time.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck
than...
that.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of?
This part of the scene is the last example of Joel's trauma being underlying. You can definitely guess it, but it hasn't yet exploded like it does afterwards. In the latter part of the exchange, Joel is angry and downright mean. In this part, he's apologetic and he's making excuses. Excuses that Ellie notices as she tells him to
Stop with the bullshit.
When Ellie asks Joel if he just wanted to get rid of her the whole time, notice how Joel doesn't answer the question.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh,
better
fuck.
than...
Joel doesn't want to get rid of Ellie in reality. He wants to pass her over to Tommy because he feels he needs to, saying, I trust him better than I trust myself. He's only abandoning Ellie because he doesn't feel capable of protecting her. He lacks self-confidence because he feels he's failed a young teenager in the past. He feels like he failed his own daughter, Sarah. He's a coward, but it's for very legitimate reasons. He even apologizes for his cowardice at the beginning of the line. This cowardice reveals that he actually cares about Ellie a lot. Had he not, he would have just delivered her. He wouldn't have cared if he failed or not. He would have just seen her as cargo. But instead of that, he feels responsible towards her, and he doesn't want to put her life at risk. Or at least that's how he sees his choice, one of a man admitting weakness, putting his ego aside to do what's best for the one he cares about. But this selflessness, the fact that he cares so much about Ellie, that scares Joel. That fear is what makes Joel angry in the second part of the scene.
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Joel's trauma makes him scared. Scared to care, scared to grow emotionally attached to Ellie. The answer to Ellie's question is quite simple. Joel is scared of losing her. He's scared to once again lose a daughter. After the question, Ellie makes rational points, reminding Joel that she can't get infected. To what Joel just says is that she'll be doing better with Tommy. He isn't elaborating on what Ellie just said. He's just emotional. Deep down, he knows he's in the wrong, but a mental barrier, an irrational mental barrier, is stopping him from doing what he wants to do and doing what Ellie wants him to do. Joel's decision doesn't come from common sense. It isn't rational thinking. It's trauma speaking. Ellie's question already gets Joel emotional, but when Ellie brings up Sarah's name, materializing the ghost that's been floating around Joel since he met Ellie, Joel just loses it. Ellie tries to be rational. It's very funny, it reverses the role that they both had at the beginning of the scene. At first, Ellie was the angry one. She was angry at Joel, and Joel was trying to play peacekeeper. But now, Joel has lost all sense of rationality, while Ellie makes a very mature remark, reminding Joel that she too has lost people along the way. However, Joel acts like any other traumatized human would. He dismisses others' trauma. He tells Ellie,
You have no idea what loss is.
like every scarred human, Joel is convinced that no one has felt his pain, no one has suffered like he has, and no one has ever suffered more than he has. What's amazing is that Joel is right, but Ellie isn't wrong because of it. Ellie is right, she is scarred, just like Joel. But Joel is right too, Ellie doesn't know what Joel's loss is, how it felt like, how it still feels like to this day. No one except for Joel knows what his loss is. Joel's statement itself is false, but the intention behind it isn't. It just got twisted when he said it. The translation between his brain and his mouth went wrong. You have no idea what my loss was would have been a more accurate line, but Joel, in this emotional state and still feeling the internal strife that comes from Sarah's death, doesn't make the difference. No one loved Sarah like he loved her before losing her, so in his eyes, no one has been through anything even remotely comparable to what he's been through. And that's normal. This is why the characters in The Last of Us are critically acclaimed. They feel real. Any human would have reacted like Joel did. A shattered soul cannot fathom that anyone suffers more than they do. But then comes the best line in the entire game. Ellie reveals how she sees Joel. She sees him like a father figure, like a protector. She's counting on him like a daughter counts on her father. And that scares Joel. He was scared of exactly this. Joel was scared that Ellie would count on him, that Ellie put her trust in him. Joel doesn't want Ellie to put her trust in him because he doesn't trust himself. He's scared that Ellie is Sarah all over again. He's scared that he's gonna get hurt all over again, that he's gonna fail again. So he shuts himself off. When a dog is scared, he bites. And humans aren't much different.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
I feel like there isn't much more I can say about this entire line. It's simply one of the best lines I've ever heard. It speaks for itself. It feels like a gunshot. Joel aims for the heart, for Ellie's heart. He's lying to himself in an effort to comfort himself. He's telling himself he isn't Ellie's father, he doesn't have any responsibility towards her. She isn't his daughter, this isn't Sarah, he can't lose a daughter again. By saying these vile things, he's also trying to make Ellie go away, to break her heart, to hurt her so bad that she'll hate him and leave him behind, like he feels like he should be, like he wishes he was, free from all responsibility, free from all fear of losing a daughter again. However, Joel is only lying to himself, that's clear. To me, Joel betrays how he feels towards Ellie in the very first line of this dialogue. When he says,
Do you even realize what your life means?
I'm pretty sure he isn't thinking about what Ellie's life means to the rest of humanity. I think he's only thinking about what Ellie's life means to himself.